Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another podcast and Happy New Year as well. Today, we have a familiar face from our product management team, Mr. Brad Woodberg, and we are here to talk about all of our network highlights from 2024. So, basically, what did we release and all of the innovation that we did as sort of a year end wrap up. So, thank you, Brad, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me and Happy New Year, everyone.
Right. So let's jump in because there's a lot to discuss. So we broke it out in terms of halves of the year. So as you can see on the table, it's the first half of R&D and releases that we did. So Brad, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, awesome. 2024 was an incredible year, and we have even more on the table lined up here for 2025. Looking back, at Vectra, one of the things I think is really special is how much value we deliver to customers every single month. And so we actually do, new features almost every single month, for at least 10 a year. I think compared to most other organizations out there, certainly ones that are shipping to appliances that are on-prem, that type of velocity is unheard of. And it's really, important to us to be able to not only build new detections, but also build new functionality, listen to our customers, and meet the demands of the market. On top of that, the other thing, just to call out here, is number one, this isn't every single thing that we did, even from a feature perspective. We're just talking about some of the highlights here because, quite honestly, we couldn't fit all of this into even a series of slides. All of our release notes are public, so you're welcome to go see all the receipts for every single line item that we delivered. Obviously, there's new features. There's also bug fixes and other things as well. But yeah, we couldn't fit every single thing. So these are a bunch of the highlights. The other thing is that we're only really talking about network here. So, we have several other products. And in fact, we launched entire products like our CDR for Azure last year for control plane protection for Azure. There's tons of new detections that came out on AWS, M365, Azure AD. Tons of things that we did in our MDR service. So this is really kind of focusing on some of the big blocks on network, but there's a lot of great stuff, and we cover all these big enhancements in other podcasts and podcasts as well. So kicking off the year, there's a couple important things that we did to get us started. We added web UI support for configuring Vector Match. That's one of several Vector Match enhancements that we did last year, and that we're kind of continuing on into this next year. Improvements that we've been doing for customers who are air gapped in terms of how the appliance is configured and how it communicates. We have a lot of customers who run Vectra NDR in pure air gap mode, meaning there's no data flowing back to Vectra. We want to make sure that we're delivering the best user experience for them as possible. We're always making improvements on detections like every single month. So that was really big for one of our most important detections, our hidden HTTPS detection. We made some improvements around improving the noise, and then further extending streams so that we could deliver some additional visibility for customers who are using Splunk. I think it's like, I forgot what it stands for. It's like HTTP, like enhanced connection or something like that. It's a more efficient way of streaming high velocity, high bandwidth data into Splunk. So that was kind of our Jan Feb timeframe. In March, we extended our Active Directory integration. So now we can do up to, I think, about 10 Active Directory instances at once. So when I say instances, I mean not just domain controllers, but actual, different, Active Directories in the product for some large organizations that can be really important. We've been improving lockdown. That is a really important response response action that folks want to take. If an account is compromised, being able to ensure that we can restrict that while the SOC and others have time to respond. A number of improvements to our Kerberos detections. I think we've added a couple more behaviors to our Kerberos detections in there, and the single week cipher is part of that as well. So really a lot of focus in March on network identity, and identity as a whole, another big topic for us. Moving into the springtime, just making some minor enhancements around the manageability of the platform. We had our new family of ICMP tunnel detections. That's obviously a rather interesting command control channel that can be used both for moving in and out. It can be used for exfil. It can even be moving from in to in. So, we had seen that being leveraged by some attackers, and so that was really important to address. Further improvements around our noise profile. So, AI triage is basically our system that will automatically triage out benign detections based upon large patterns that we observe. So we extended that by adding some new detections into the coverage. And then one of many performance improvements for algorithms. Last year, we invested, a lot, not only in extending our algorithm coverage, reducing noise, but also increasing the scale. And so suspicious remote execution was one of the first ones that we tackled when it came to increasing the scale. Yeah, it's really, really interesting problems to go solve. And that's an important detection because a lot of times attackers will leverage, Active Directory native componentry to be able to move east and west, and that protection is responsible for that. As we kind of continue into the spring, we've extended our MITRE mapping. So, historically it was in the web UI, it was in the API. We extended it into our syslog messages so that you could always map, which MITRE technique is associated with, which detection in syslog. So if you're using a Splunk or Logarithm or whatever it may be, your external system will have that visibility. Improvements to triage. We again take a lot of inspiration and feedback from customers, and they identified, hey, here's some ways that you could make our triage experience even better. We can write fewer but more efficient triage rules for common scenarios, and so we took that to heart. Vector match, adding stream support for it, and network active posture. This is part of our burgeoning reporting framework that we're working on, that'll continue into this next year, adding visibility at a kind of macro level to help the SOC and leadership understand kind of what's happening on the network, along with where are potential risks, things that may not be an incident today but could be tomorrow. So kind of highlighting what some of those potential areas are, systems that are running legacy protocols, vulnerable software, risky behavior, things like that. As we kind of approach into the summer, a couple different things that we delivered. Further improvements around our prioritization and scoring. That is really important for providing customers with the clearest possible attack signal. When we say prioritization, what we're really talking about is how we're not only bringing all the detections in to a given entity, so it could be a host or an account, but we're also talking about how we put the most important entities at the top of the list, so to speak. So there, we use AI here at Vectra not only for the detections themselves. We use AI to help us with the triage process, to mark things as benign, that we kind of in the fullness of time understand to be benign. But we also use AI to help us take in all the different factors within the environment and say, hey, these given hosts are the most important. If you have 5 minutes, spend it on these three, because we saw interesting behaviors that are not only different, but they're different in a way that lend them to be malicious, are consistent with what an attacker would do. So that's one of the big overhauls that we did in June. We added the vector match curated rule set, which is a OEM version of the Proofpoint ET Pro rule set. It's kind of the industry standard. Full disclosure, I ran that for 6 years, several years back prior to my 3.5 years here at Vectra. But yeah, it's kind of the industry standard rule set. So now out of the box, Vectra Match has the ET Pro rule set. So you have rules, you don't have to go kind of commandeer any or write them yourself. Um, Lots of improvements around DNS. That's also continued into this year. We kind of did a whole refactor of the DNS protocol, just because there's a couple other ways that attackers could, do some really innovative, things where they hide or do things at very low volume. So we want to make sure that we have those covered. And lastly, adding vector match support into Respond UX. As you can see, the color coding here, if it's blue, it means basically everywhere. If it's green, it's pertinent only to the quadrant UX, and purple is in Respond UX. Now, one thing that I will say is, we just at the end of 2023 launched Respond UX, and so there was some work that we had to do to kind of round out the rest of the portfolio. And so going forward, I think there'll probably be fewer things where we're kind of retrofitting functionality back in. There may be functionality that we deliver in Respond UX because we have access to all the metadata that isn't done on-prem, but generally we're trying to have these features come out in sync or as close as possible. So yeah, so really that was the first half of the year. Lots going on. Why don't we take a look at what happened on the second half?
Yes, perfect segue. So we will jump into the second half here.
Yeah, so getting into into the summer, and again, a big chunk of a lot of the things that we did here in the summer included getting the CDR for Azure release ready for launch. But we did a bunch of integrations with our M365 and Azure AD coverage. There's lots of new detections, and one of the really cool things that we did was we've added Copilot detections for Microsoft Copilot. So basically, attackers can leverage Copilot to eliminate, a good chunk of like the reconnaissance stage in attacks, and that's super interesting. And we've kind of discovered ways that we've talked about here in other podcasts and at public security conferences about how Copilot can be used. And so we've been building in protections against those abuses because Gen AI is a game changer, and Copilot is part of that. And we're talking to tons of customers, and almost everyone is turning Copilot on in some form or another, if not in production, then on a limited scale. And a lot of that messaging is kind of coming from the top of the organization saying you have to go turn this on. So Vectra, has basically implemented solutions here where we can help to let you enable these things, responding to the needs of the business, but at the same time ensuring that there are guardrails, that there are protection against attacks, because there's a lot of different techniques that aren't covered by the native controls. Traffic validation report. So this is another piece of functionality that we added in. Essentially, this is going to be another area that we kind of continue on into this year, really focusing on how to provide you, the customer, visibility into what Vectra has visibility into. Sometimes in really large networks, it can be difficult to understand, hey, here's exactly what what Vectra is seeing, and maybe something upstream breaks, or packet broker has a software bug or something. We want to be able to help provide you with the visibility to know if something has gone wrong with that, which may ultimately impact Vectra's ability to provide security. So the traffic report was the first part of that, and then we're going to continue a lot of things there to flesh that out. But yeah, we talked about the Copilot detections already. We introduced the GCP 50 gig brain. So now we can run our brain in AWS, Azure, and GCP. We introduced kind of our suspicious protocol activity detections, which is basically a way that now Vectra can deliver same day detections for certain types of functionality. We're leveraging the underlying Suricata engine, just like what we use for Match, but these are Vectra authored rules that we're able to do, and this is kind of a complement to our AI. Sometimes there may AI takes a while to build, and we may be able to do certain things with a signature. So let's get that signature out. If it's sufficient, great. If it isn't, then we have some coverage while we build out the rest of the more robust coverage on the AI side. So that was a really big improvement there. Check out the suspect protocol activity on our knowledge base on leveraging that. Um, More improvements around Active Directory, Azure AD in terms of coverage, and we added selective PCAP into Respond UX. That was one of the gaps that we had to bring in that we originally supported on the appliances. Moving into the fall, one of the other areas that we've been focusing on is how we can make the end user experience better for troubleshooting and diagnostics. So we added a ton of new functionality so that you, the customer, can run certain types of kind of operational commands on the system without needing Vectra support. So basically self-service. I mean, Vectra support has your back when you need it, but there's certain types of operations, diagnostics, network connectivity, things like that, that you may, just be able to do yourself and get to the bottom of a problem more quickly. So we wanted to enable that. We have the improved group management. This is really around the user interface and scale to make it for our customers that have thousands or tens of thousands of groups. Make it easier for them to manage. Again, continued investment on how we do detections in Azure AD, looking for the latest and greatest behaviors, other platform upgrades in the form of our hardware. Speaking of hardware, as we got into October, really excited to announce the X3 platform. The X3, like any of our platforms, we have a naming convention. There's X, which means it can be brain, sensor, or mix mode. We have S, which is sensor, and B is brain only. So the X3 can be run in any of the configurations, and up to I think 15 gig on the brain side. And so, yeah, it's really, really nice new sensor. Has combination 1 gig, 10 gig support. So, this is the first mixed mode capable sensor we've released in a few years. We released new GCP virtual sensors for higher performance, I think up to 10 gig. In October, we had probably one of the biggest, kind of most consequential investments come to fruition for command and control. This is around our hidden HTTPS and hidden HTTP tunnel detections. Yeah, really exciting because for this, basically we released, we came up with a whole new way of building our C2 detections. It was really groundbreaking, leveraging the latest AI approaches in a interesting combination. And the whole point here is, can we build these detections faster? Can we build them with, better accuracy and better scale? And so going forward, we're going to be, leveraging this new approach, and you'll see as we go into 2025, there'll be a lot of new detections that we build out using this. Similarly, the hidden tunnel detection, this is basically using the same technology, but is for protocols that aren't HTTP or HTTPS. So we can still do encrypted traffic detection on basically any protocol. Yeah, we made a couple minor enhancements to our SQL injection detection. So, just part of part of a day in the life here. And as I mentioned before, when we did the suspicious remote execution detection, the file share enumeration and account scaling were other detections that we kind of overhauled. They're all around SMB, as you may, if you're paying really close attention, may notice. SMB is an incredibly complicated protocol to parse, but also it can be very, very bandwidth intensive because it can be used for both, operations, like remote procedure calls and things like that, and logins. It can also be used for file transfers. So all over, the very same protocol. And so we had to kind of enhance the way that these are working to make sure that, at the largest of scales, as we continue to build larger and larger systems, that these are happy and healthy. Um, Finally, rounding out the year, when it comes to upgrades for customers who are offline, there's no way for us to automatically deliver the software update as we do when customers are traditionally connected. And before, you basically had to like upload every single file. We would deliver them to you, but like one by one, you had to upload them individually. You'd have to, if you weren't keeping up to date on your software updates and you had a bunch of releases that you had to do, it could take a while, to go sequentially. And so what we did was we made it so that, starting in the 8.9 release going forward, you can just upload one large package to us. And that package will have all the different versions that you need. It'll automatically upgrade them sequentially. So it's kind of just like a one operation, action, even if you're several releases behind, and you won't have all the same, files to deal with and everything. We've gotten a lot of great feedback there. More troubleshooting commands again, just trying to make everyone's lives easier. If you need to take a quick look at something, where you ordinarily might not need support, checking time, DNS, disk, other resources, connectivity, building those out. Backup and restore. I know we changed the way that we do the packaging in the system. So I think for large customers, like the amount of time it would take to do a backup went from like 45 minutes to about 10. So that's, pretty helpful. And then we have some other ideas on how we can improve that as we go into next year. And the very last thing is that for offline customers, we made it possible to download the Vector Match rule set, which wasn't, it wasn't directly available like we had it in the product. Now you can go download it right from the support portal. So yeah, that's there's a lot here as you can see,
God,
and
yes.
we didn't cover every single thing that we did. We're talking about a bunch of the highlights. But if you're impressed by what we did here, I think 2025 is going to be an even more consequential and impressive year. Yeah, we have new releases that are coming out, starting this week, and will be, kind of rolling thunder all year round. So I'm really looking forward to coming back and doing these sessions as we release the new releases every month.
Perfect. Thank you, Brad. And with that, we'll close out this podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of our podcasts, and feel free to like, comment, ask questions. We're here to answer your questions. I know that was a lot of material, and like Brad said, we are very invested in expanding our coverage, clarity, and control to help stop hybrid attacks and help, customers like yourself stay safe. So thank you all for listening, and have a great day.